Skills. That's right, beautiful people. Today we're taking a look at the historical thinking skills you need to be successful in AP US history. We're going to be looking at some questions from periods 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to get started right now. Keep in mind, you need the skills, the historical thinking skills, to be successful in any AP history class. So don't be like that guy, be like this guy. You're going to become a boss. So a quick rundown of what the targeted historical thinking skills are. Keep in mind they are in all parts of the AP exam. The DBQ will have one of the following historical thinking skills as its main focus. You may get historical causation, patterns of continuity and change over time, comparison, periodization, and pretty much all of them require some level of interpretation. So these are the skills for the DBQ. And in section B of the long essay question rubric, it assesses your use of the targeted historical thinking skills. So you're going to get one of those from up there, and that's going to be the focus of the LEQ. And even on the multiple choice and the short answer sections of the exam, these skills will be assessed. So let's take a look at what each of these require you to do. The first one is causation, and this particular skill is going to test your ability to identify, analyze, and evaluate causes and effects of historical events. You're going to need to be able to recognize the many complex factors that cause historical events to occur. You're going to need to be able to show both the short and long-term causes and effects. And in essence, you're going to need to be able to explain why things happened and what are the results of those things happening. For the long essay question, on the most basic level, to get at least 1 point, you're going to need to describe the causes and effects of a historical event, development, or process. So basically say what happened. To get that other point on that section of the rubric, you're going to need to explain the reasons for the causes and effects. And if the prompt says you must address both, you better do both or else you won't get any points. For this type of question, be prepared for having to defend what is the most significant cause of something, perhaps a war, or the biggest impact or effect of an event. So let's show what this looks like in the real world. Here's one example. Evaluate the impact of geography on the development of the New England, the Chesapeake, and the Mid-Atlantic colonies. So for this question, you're going to need to look at what were the effects of geography on these different regions and break that down. They're giving you the cause, the geography, what is the effect. Another type of causation question, evaluate the effects of the French and Indian War on the relationship between England and the British colonies from 1754 to 1776. So you're going to need to take a look at what happened after that war. What were the impacts of the French and Indian War? And to do that, you're going to need to take a look at what happened prior to the war as well. Another skill you better have is the ability to determine what changed and what stayed the same between different time periods. This is continuity and change over time. You need to see the larger picture here, what changed, what stayed the same between different periods of time. And important to keep in mind is that you need to be able to describe patterns and or shifts and explain reasons why they happened. You might need to elaborate as to whether or not things changed or stayed the same, or which was it? Was it more continuity or was it more change? Some examples in the real world: evaluate the extent to which English, Spanish, and French colonists contributed to maintaining continuity as well as fostered change within the Native American populations from 1492 to 1700. So keep in mind, if they give you years, dates, you need to stay within those years. So obviously 1492, the arrival of Columbus. How did Native Americans' lives changed? Did they stay the same? So you're going to need to take a look at what happened before Columbus and what happens all the way up until 1700, and you need to hit on those three different areas: England, Spanish, and French colonies. Another example dealing with the French and Indian War is this: evaluate how the French and Indian War maintained continuities and fostered changes in the relationship between England and the 13 colonies. So this is similar to the question we saw under causation. So how did things change because of the French and Indian War? Did things change a lot, a little, not at all? You're going to need to evaluate that and provide evidence to prove your thesis. The next skill you should be really good at is comparison. This one's going to test your ability to identify and analyze the similarities and differences, and this could be between different historical events, time periods, geographic areas, and so on. So you may have to compare the North and the South, the 1920s to the 1950s. There's a variety of things they could be asking you. Make sure you are able to not only describe, but also explain the reasons why those similarities and or differences exist. So you can't just say, here's all the similarities, here's all the differences. To be more sophisticated, to get the higher score, especially on the long essay question, you need to explain why. Just like all of these skills, you may see the skill of comparison tested on the multiple choice or the short answer section. So make sure you're able to identify, compare, and evaluate diverse perspectives. They may give you two historians. What are they saying that's different? What are they saying that's similar? Why are they saying those things? Some examples of comparison types questions: compare and contrast the Spanish, the French, and British colonization of North America in the 16th and 17th centuries. So not only would you need to describe how these areas were similar and different, but if you want to get the full credit, you want to explain why. One more example for you: compare and contrast the relationship between Native Americans and their European allies, both before and after the French and Indian War. So we got that French and Indian War again, but this one's looking at it from a different angle. What was the relationship of Native Americans before the war with different European powers, Spain, France, England, and then how does it change because of this war? Don't just describe it, but explain why. And the last one is periodization. This one is your ability to evaluate whether or not an event or date could be considered a turning point in history. Of course, to do this, you're going to need to take a look at how were things before and after a particular event, year, or period. So they're going to very oftentimes give you one of those things. You're going to have to look at before and after. Is this truly a turning point? Or they may ask you to evaluate to what extent. Was it a lot of change, a little bit of change? So keep that in mind. You must address the before and the after. And periodization is really trying to see, do you understand the organization of historical periods? What are the characteristics of different periods of time? You know, what was the 1920s like versus the 1950s? Is that an accurate assessment? And like I said, are those periods accurately defined? So that's really what periodization is intending to evaluate. Two examples for you. To what extent was Bacon's Rebellion a turning point in the economic and social development of the Chesapeake colonies? So you're going to have to take a look at this event. Did it change things? Was it a turning point in colonial Virginia and Maryland? How so? What was before? What is after? Another example, evaluate the extent to which the French and Indian War was a turning point in the political and economic relationship between England and its American colonies. So we got the French and Indian War again, but this time they're giving you categories, political and economic. So it's really important you look at what was the political and economic relationship before this war and after. And did the French and Indian War, was it a turning point? Take a position and defend it with historical evidence. Those are some of the historical thinking skills. If you haven't checked out our DBQ video, make sure you click the link on that and all our other videos. We got the long essay question, short answer, and a ton of review videos. If the video helped you out, click like, tell your friends about it, click subscribe, and until next time, have a beautiful day. Peace.